I'm here talking to you about Quora, which is a social media question and answer site, and I've been wanting for a long time to answer a simple question. What did I learn from asking over 10,000 questions on Quora, which puts me in the top 10 for most questions asked by anyone on a social media site that has millions of users. I'm sure Yahoo Answers has some too, but as far as Quora, I'm in the top 10. And because of the advent of technology and computers, I've probably asked legitimately more questions in a year, or at least as many as anyone in the human race ever has, minus maybe 1,000 or 10,000 people that have done it too. So, I've asked a lot of freaking questions. That's like a lot of questions. I mean, question. Try writing 100 questions, and then multiply that by 10. You get 1,000 questions. Now imagine doing that 10 times. Now you got 10,000 questions. Basic arithmetic, not exciting. So what did I learn? Well, I learned you get a lot better at asking questions after you ask a lot of them. And that at first there's a barrier to creativity. So if you try it and aren't used to it, you'll ask a bunch of the same stupid questions everyone else has asked, and you'll have these big pauses in between your generation of the next question. So if we're talking about life experiences, you might be like, where did you grow up? How was your high school like? What was your first job? Everyone asks those same stupid questions, and then you might pause and be like, and your mind will go, cars, equipment. After a while, you can start to focus that, and then you'll realize and get better at creating unique questions from a root subject. So, where did you grow up, or what high school you went to, or what was your first car, would then become, would you trade your current vehicle to have your first car back? That's probably not asked on Quora. In fact, I'll check right after this. You could put, if you were growing up in the same hometown, but rich instead of poor, how would your life have been different? These aren't amazing questions, but it's an example of how you will improve your ability to ask more unique or intriguing questions from the same root thought, which will allow you to produce a lot more interesting questions that haven't been asked before once you practice that. You'll never be able to predict which questions do well. Almost the identical question, with a couple things changed, will do 1,000 times better when it comes to traffic and statistics. It's extremely hard to predict which ones people will like. Some of my most popular are also the most basic, but at the same time, some of my esoteric, more intense questions did pretty well. And then some of my more humanistic questions also did well, when the majority of them did not do well and did not earn very much money, or statistics or traffic or whatever you want to view as your guiding point. So, you can't predict which questions will be popular. Really amazing questions are popular, really basic questions are popular. One of my most popular questions was, why is Lyft cheaper than Uber? Does that sound awesome? So my least popular questions were, what would you do with an AI slave? What will the first virtual humans do? These are like more esoteric but didn't do very well. But then at the same time, some political questions like, well, what do Donald Trump supporters get wrong factually about Donald Trump? Just like a basic meta question, but a lot of people are interested in that. On a personal note, you might be like, how do I discipline my 5-year-old, yada, yada. So, would I do it again? Why did I do it? I did it just to do it. I like the game systems where you try to figure out how to win, how to exploit any holes in the system, variables, and Quora provided a pretty unique opportunity for that. I wanted to figure out how I could build a popular Quora page. A lot of people answer a lot of questions. I did that too. But I looked at prolificness, how many questions people ask legitimately, not using like an auto-generated bot. And I figured out I could, with practice, hopefully, see if I could train my mind to ask interesting questions fast enough to put myself in the top 10 for most prolific question askers. And I was successful. So if you go check my profile page out for Quora, which is linked below, you will see I've asked over 12,000 questions now, and still going. Will I keep it up? Maybe. It's interesting. We'll see what happens. But it was definitely an interesting experiment. And those are some of the things I learned. The other things I learned is people tend to answer leading questions more than neutral questions. So all these sites, including Quora, including Yahoo Answers, including various wikis and stuff, always try to get you to ask questions in this sterile, neutral, non-biased way. The problem is that goes against human psychology, because when you ask a sterile, non-biased question, you don't engage your audience. At least not on a social site, at least not on a site where people are looking at questions. The questions with the most neutral, sterile bases got the least answers. For sure. Remember, I've asked 12,000 freaking questions. You can look at all my questions. The questions that have some bias or have a slant or an angle or an opinion in them are answered 100 times more than the just straightforward questions. When it comes to advice, when it comes to personal information, when it comes to general reviews, or like if someone likes something, if you slant the question and give it kind of an angle, it'll do way better. Also, combining two actions. So, what's the worst thing anyone's ever done to you? Would be like a basic question, right? But if you go more specific with the action and specific with how you found out, you create like a mini story question. What's the most shocking thing you've caught your coworker doing? Is an example that did pretty well. What's the most shocking thing you've caught your spouse doing? Also good. What's the most scandalous bachelorette party you ever heard about? It kind of like flows it into a story question as opposed to like the optimum time for. This is Saul Roth. If you're interested in my weird rants about all kinds of random stuff, including asking way too many questions, subscribe below. I'm also into fitness. I'm also into movies. Check that out, and I'll see you soon. Out.